The knowledge of the occult is not widely disclosed. It is not offered to the masses, but rather reserved for a few. This happens for a reason. It has been deliberately hidden to create and maintain a power imbalance. If someone possesses an extreme level of knowledge, such as understanding how human consciousness works, motivations, perceptions, and how humans can be manipulated, that person can exert great control over those who know nothing about it. And that is exactly what they don't want you to know. This video contains a master key that opens all doors and all cages. This key is called the true law of attraction because it differs greatly from the versions promoted by the New Age community. I hope you understand them from this moment on. Humans must carefully consider where the information they receive comes from. Many modern institutions, such as the media and so-called educational institutions, seek to control human perceptions, limiting what people can understand and consequently what they can change or create in the world. We all have an intuitive capacity that needs to be activated and used. People say they want happiness, health, peace, prosperity, and freedom, but often they are not honest with themselves. These conditions don't arise magically. They have requirements. Knowledge of natural law is an occult knowledge kept by few, represented by the top of a pyramid. The higher you go, the more knowledge you possess. However, the Y base represents the ignorant masses. When I speak of occult, I mean hidden knowledge. This knowledge is deeply hidden so that you don't learn, distracted by trivialities like news, video games, sports, and TV shows. This distraction aims to prevent you from discovering what really matters. The truth is based on events that have happened and are happening, regardless of how we want them to be. Universal laws were created to function perfectly, regardless of our understanding or acceptance. Just as gravity doesn't depend on our belief to exist, neither does natural law. Human consciousness is an intangible force, but it manifests physically in the brain and heart. However, limiting beliefs prevent the activation of the heart, creating apathy and inaction. Consciousness expresses itself through thoughts, emotions, and actions. Thoughts are creative forces, while emotions are inner feminine expressions. The union between the two leads to manifestation. This explanation of consciousness and its expressions is not just a philosophical concept. It's present in many religious traditions as the concept of the Trinity. One can refer to Egyptian traditions or Christian traditions. Every religious tradition that mentions a Trinity speaks of a Creator Father, a sacred feminine figure whom the Father impregnates or inseminates in some way. From this, a human son is born. The Father represents the mind, the creative essence. The spirit or emotions represent the sacred feminine essence, the Holy Spirit. Emotions and the human son represent behavior, the active masculine principle that interacts with the physical world to transform it. This is the only way for us to save ourselves. Human nature is programmable. We are like computers in the way we can be programmed. What is inserted into a person by the environment, called culture, becomes their program and determines what they will manifest in life, creating the human condition on a collective scale as more people act in this way. Humans are programmable, like computers. If a person has a bad file system, this resembles the conditions during a child's formative years. These years shape the file system that prepares the person for their operating system, which controls how tasks are performed. If the child's file system is bad, meaning if they have inadequate conditions during the first years of life, this impacts the rest. What programs the child at this stage are the parents and what they see in their immediate environment. Furthermore, the operating system, represented by culture, affects how the programs work. If the culture is bad, the impact will also be negative. The programs, which are the absorbed beliefs, influence behavior. If the formative systems, cultural systems, and belief systems are bad, the result will be chaotic. Just like in a computer, if the file system, the operating system, and the programs are compromised, one cannot expect adequate performance. The same happens with humans. Poor formative conditions, culture, and beliefs create poor results on a collective scale. Human behavior depends on the quality of the information received. If bad information comes in, bad information comes out. If good information comes in, the result will be efficient and effective rather than chaotic. This principle, when understood, reveals how natural law works. Many avoid facing this because it implies effort to acquire knowledge, which is essential to achieve the desired conditions. It all starts with the quality of the information available. This constitutes potential knowledge, which can become knowledge if it is absorbed, gathered, processed, and understood, and then put into practice. This can be called the grammatical step of this three-part process. It can also be referred to as the input step if we think in computational terms. This is the stage of entering information or programming something. The next step, based on this, is, after absorbing the necessary information, reaching a point of understanding it, recognizing the patterns. This is the second stage of the process. Understanding or lack thereof depends on the initial knowledge or lack of it. If there is understanding, the decision-making processes will be aligned with what you desire. You will understand that, to achieve what you want, it is necessary to identify what is essential to achieve it. Understanding is a decision-making process that occurs in the human mind and is chosen by each individual based on the information available. If information is hidden or if people are discouraged from absorbing it, they will never reach this stage of understanding or the second level of reality creation. The third stage of this process is what you do with what you know and understand. This is the stage of action. The behavior of each individual, chosen by their own will, is based on the quality of their decision-making processes, which in turn depend on the quality of the available information. Behavior is wisdom. Many do not think of wisdom as action, but as something that is known. This is wrong. Wisdom is action. It is knowledge and understanding applied. Based on these three processes, something is generated, something is created in physical reality. Manifested reality depends on collective behavior. No single person creates the reality we experience. It is a mistake to think otherwise. Collectively, we create the shared reality. All behaviors together create the final result. This result can be orderly or chaotic, depending on whether the information was absorbed, processed, and applied properly. The manifested reality reflects the quality of the conditions of any society based on the aggregated quality of human behavior within that society. This explains how our reality is created, the conditions we live in, and the daily events of our lives. It is a simple three-step process that leads to a result. For many, This process of discovery and creation is known as the trivium. The trivium consists of knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. This method of discovering the truth has been removed from public consciousness. The classical method of learning the liberal arts, known as the trivium, has been almost erased to prevent understanding of how it works. This process is essential to building our reality in an efficient or destructive way. Now, let's examine the principles of how natural laws work before analyzing their expressions in our lives. Natural laws are expressed by 7 basic principles, plus an 8th hidden principle, rarely mentioned, that unifies the other 7. This 8th principle, known as the lost principle, ties everything together and constitutes a master key to unlocking universal wisdom, including the knowledge necessary to achieve what we desire. These 7 general principles of natural law are known as the Hermetic principles, originating from Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great, from the Greek mystical traditions. They are mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. The principle of mentalism states that everything in creation is a manifestation of the mind. Everything that happens is a result of a mental state that preceded it. For anything to exist, thoughts must arise first, creating the physical reality afterward. The universe is a mental construct of the Creator. Thoughts lead to the manifestation of things and events, creating conditions and states of existence. Thus, we must be responsible for what we create, starting with responsibility for what we think. Mental processes drive our behaviors. People act based on the belief systems in their minds, functioning like programs. Thoughts and emotions drive actions. For reality to change, thoughts and emotions must first change, as they are the driving force behind behavior. Only then will reality change. Many do not want to hear this, as it implies changing the way they think to achieve what they claim to desire. Often, they are doing exactly the opposite. This is the principle of mentalism. The principle of correspondence states that what is above is like what is below, and what is below is like what is above. This means that the above and below are reflections of each other. The above refers to the macrocosm, the laws governing the very large things, the creation we perceive as external to ourselves, although at the deepest level, we know we are one with it. The below refers to the microcosm, the individualized units that make up the whole in its aggregate. These two aspects are reflections of each other and cannot be separated. As one changes, the other changes as well. The universe is a holographic system. In a hologram, if you divide it into parts, each part will contain the whole image, only with reduced resolution proportional to the size of the part. Similarly, the universe is contained in each individual, and the individual reflects the universe as a whole. To understand the functioning of the individual, it is necessary to learn the macrocosmic laws. Likewise, studying the laws of the macrocosm helps us understand how individual consciousness works. This is the foundation of hidden knowledge, how the microcosm, individual consciousness, and the macrocosm, natural laws, interact. Another aspect of the principle of correspondence is that our reality has a fractal nature. Fractals are self-similar mathematical patterns, such as the Fibonacci sequence, that repeat infinitely in nature. For example, the structure of an atom is similar to that of a solar system, which in turn resembles the structure of a galaxy. These patterns are consistent at all levels. The principle of vibration states that nothing is in total rest. Death, in this sense, is an illusion because true death would be the cessation of all movement and energy, which does not exist. Everything vibrates, and at the most fundamental level, the universe and everything that composes it is pure vibratory energy, manifesting in different forms and frequencies. Matter is not truly solid. It is energy in a state of vibration. When we understand this, we realize that the universe is a spiritual construct created to provide us with experiences, learning, and growth in consciousness. The principle of polarity declares that everything has a dual nature with opposite polarities. These polarities, however, are identical in nature but different in degree. For example, hot and cold are not absolute opposites but different levels of the same thing. Thermal energy. The absence or presence of heat determines whether something is cold or hot. The principle of rhythm states that everything has a flow and reflux. Everything rises and falls like a swinging pendulum. The measure of movement in one direction is equivalent to the measure of movement in the opposite direction. This tendency is not something fixed and unchangeable. With higher levels of consciousness, it is possible to overcome the rhythm and influence the outcome. For example, when rowing a boat against a strong tide, more effort is required to move forward. However, if the tide is in your favor, the movement is facilitated. Thus, consciousness plays a role in overcoming natural forces and achieving the desired goal, even if greater effort is required in certain circumstances. The principle of cause and effect states that every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. Everything that happens occurs according to a law. Chance is merely the name given to a law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. There is free will, but there is no free will to ignore the law without consequences. Free will operates within limiting conditions that cannot be exceeded without consequences. One can break the natural law, but it always brings negative consequences. That is why this body of knowledge is called consequentialism, the understanding of how consequences are generated by decisions made within the limits of natural law. This principle explains that when a cause is set in motion, the universe dynamically reorganizes everything necessary to bring about the corresponding effect. However, there is a time interval between cause and effect, which makes recognizing the cause and effect pattern difficult. This interval causes many people to fail to understand how their actions generate the conditions they experience. To understand better, imagine two planes, the plane of effects and the plane of causes. There is no power to change anything on the plane of effects, which is the manifested physical reality. What has already happened in the past cannot be altered. One can only change the present to influence the future. Focusing on the plane of effects without modifying the underlying causes is like rearranging the chairs on the Titanic as it sinks. The underlying causes lie in how we think, feel, and act. Many believe they can change their circumstances without changing these fundamentals, but this is impossible according to natural law. The principle of gender is also present in everything. Everything has male and female components or principles, which manifest across all planes of existence, spiritual, mental, and physical. Mental gender refers to the balance between the male and female aspects of the mind. The left hemisphere of the brain facilitates male aspects, such as logic and analytical thinking, while the right hemisphere facilitates female aspects, such as intuition, creativity, and compassion. Finally, there is the lost principle, the eighth principle of natural law, which unites all the others. It is like the vessel that contains the other principles and symbolizes creative potential. Just as a seed needs its shell to protect the internal genetic material, this principle encapsulates and sustains the creative essence that enables the functioning of natural law. The eighth principle, known as the lost principle, is essential for any change to manifest. It is called the generative principle, or the principle that governs creation. It is the causal factor that comes into action and generates the results we desire. The term that defines this principle is care. Care, in this context, means that which you dedicate your attention to and help to grow, that which you focus on. What you choose to focus on is what, in the end, will be created, generated, and grow. However, this does not mean ignoring the negative aspects of the world. Ignoring the negative only feeds it and ensures it grows. Care refers to what you are energizing with your focus, attention, and actions, what you care enough to dedicate your time and efforts to. The lost principle works as the dynamic of care, what we care for daily acts as the driving force of our thoughts and actions. To progress, it is necessary to develop the heart, the mind, and courage in that order. First, you need to care, then acquire knowledge, and finally, act based on it. All three elements must be present, with no contradictions between what we think, feel, and do. This harmony is called consciousness of unity. Care, being the engine of our thoughts and actions, is the generator of the quality of our shared experience on Earth. That is why it is called the generative principle. Just as the heart in the human body functions as a pump that moves vital force through the blood, care generates and sustains our life experience. The heart, being the center of the being, determines what we think and how we act most of the time, shaping our reality. This principle is symbolized, for example, in the emblem of the compass and square of Freemasonry, with the letter G in the center. At the higher levels of Masonic esoteric knowledge, the G represents the generative principle related to Genesis and creation. It connects to the idea of God and sacred geometry, as everything in the manifested physical world takes on geometric forms. But at its deepest level, the G symbolizes the generative principle, which means creation. This principle is lost because people have stopped truly caring. Therefore, the lost principle, care, reminds us that the power to shape our reality is directly linked to what we choose to nurture with our attention, intention, and action. It challenges us to look beyond the surface of things and take responsibility for our choices, recognizing that everything we create, whether positive or negative, comes from what we truly value. Caring, in this sense, is more than a passive act. It is the driving force behind all creation and transformation. It is the invitation to align thoughts, feelings, and actions with what we wish to manifest, generating a more conscious, harmonious existence aligned with natural laws. Only when we reclaim this lost principle and integrate it into our lives can we transcend limitations and create a future guided by purpose, understanding, and balance.